welcome back to my channel. Now, if you're one of my long-time subscribers, you might be wondering why I've not made any videos in the past 8 years. Well, there's a number of reasons, none of which are very interesting. Essentially, life just got in the way. Between work commitments and family commitments, there just weren't enough hours in the day to make videos, and it just kind of got sidelined. So, if you've been waiting since 2017 for me to finish my petrol bristlebot video, or to do a Mark II of my self-strumming guitar, I'm sorry, okay? I'm very, very sorry. I just had other stuff to do. So, what have I been up to since then? Well, I got married. I survived a pandemic. I ate a lot of cheese. I ran an eBay business for a few years. And I learned to code as well. And that's an important one because it's opened up a lot of possibilities for the kind of projects and content that I want to make going forward. So why am I back? Well, things have calmed down now to the point where I feel like I've got enough time and space to put some effort back into my channel. My son's also started a YouTube channel of his own, and I've kind of got the bug back after helping him set that up. By the way, his channel's called The Cyan Gamer, so I'm going to put a link in the description, so why don't you go give him a subscribe and help him out. Okay, so on to today's project. I'm going to be building a retro gaming platform using a Raspberry Pi that can emulate all of the classic games console you probably played when you were a kid. Now, I actually made this video about a year ago as a promo for a digital skills college I was working for, just to try and get people interested in the tech space. But I'm posting it here to see if people are interested in this sort of content going forward. So if it comes across as a little bit corporate sounding, or if you see odd bits of branding in the video, then that's why. Hopefully you guys are into it. If not, I'll just get back to chopping up pallets and making a mess. Anyway, enough waffle. Here's the project. Okay, so let's open the box and have a look inside. So as you can see in the box, there's not all that much. You've got the circuit board and you've got the instructions, and that's about it. So looking at the board, there's a processor in the middle. We've got power supply here, and a bunch of USB sockets on this end, an Ethernet port here. And we've got these things which are called general purpose in out pins, and we'll look at those later. So here we've got all the components that I need for the build. So we've got the Pi itself, we've got a power supply. So I bought an official power supply because the current requirements for the Raspberry Pi is quite high. This one needs 3 amps, which is quite a lot. Otherwise it's the same connector as your phone charger. We've got an HDMI cable because the Pi has a mini HDMI rather than a standard. The old Pis had standard, but the new ones have mini, so I've had to get a cable for that. SD card, and last but not least, we have a case. One of the fun things about the Pi community is its open source nature. Lots of people design and 3D print their own cases and share the design. So if you've got access to a 3D printer, you can easily search up craft files and print a case for yourself. Have a scan through Thingiverse, and there are literally hundreds of options to choose from. Personally, I don't have a 3D printer, so I had to buy a case. And I picked this one because it looks a bit like a mini version of a popular gaming console from the 80s. And this one also has the added bonus of a built-in cooling fan. So that's all our parts. My total spend was about £110, but that's only because I got all new parts and the latest Pi with the most memory to get the best performance for gaming. If, however, you're on a budget, you can get a perfectly good used Pi 3 for between £10 and £20, and then have a rummage around your house because we've all got chargers and old SD cards lying around everywhere. So the first stage of this build is to set up the actual hardware that we're going to use, and I've made a quick slideshow just to detail the steps that I went through. So this is the case itself that I ordered, and this is the case opened up with all the parts that came with it. So as you can see, you've got a case fan built in. There's a separate heatsink fan that mounts directly onto the board, and that mounts via these thermal pads, which are the pink things in the bag down there. And this is attaching the pads to the board, which is actually very easy because they're double-sided sticky, so there was no thermal paste or anything messy like that to deal with. And that's all the pads in place. And that's the heatsink fan, so that's actually mounted to the board just by the stickies. And then we lock it into place with a couple of nylon screws on the back. Connect up the fan to the board's power supply, and then mount the board and the fan in the casing, and that just screws into place. There's screws there, I don't know if you can see. And after that, you wire the case fan to the GPIO pins, And that's essentially it. So it's quite a quick and easy build. It didn't take very long to do. I just took a couple of pictures at the end just to show how well the board's ports line up with the casing. It's a very precisely made piece of equipment, which was surprising. So yeah, so that was that. Now we've dealt with the hardware, we need to sort out the software. Pis, being the size they are, don't have a hard drive. Instead, they use an SD card, which has an operating system stored on it, and there are loads to choose from. So here is a list of operating systems from the Raspberry Pi forums, and this has got all the major distros that you might want to choose from. There's the official one that you can use, which is very much like a standard PC, and you can surf the web, you can send emails, you can play Minecraft. There are various stripped down versions that just have a basic operating system for more specific applications. The specific ones for music players, home theaters, gaming. You can install Windows if you want to install Windows. There's plenty of options to choose from. The best part is because you're installing each of these on an SD card, you can run multiple platforms from the same hardware. So if I want to build my games machine and then I want to use that for something else, I can just take the SD card that has the gaming OS on it, and I can just stick in another one that's got a standard OS, and I can be surfing the web in seconds. The distro we're going to use is this one, Retropie, which is a standalone gaming platform with emulators for pretty much every console you can think of, from the Atari 2600 to the PS2, the Nintendo Wii. If you look on the website docs, then there's a big list of all the different platforms that get emulated. So there's stuff like the GameCube, Mega Drive. What else have we got? We've got the Amiga, old classic, the Amiga. What else? We've got Atari ST. Obviously, those the big rival to the Amiga back in the day. There's the ZX Spectrum. This is what I grew up on back in the 80s, back when games were hard. What else? We've got the SNES. There's also, as you can see, there's all sorts available to choose from. What there also is arcade emulators as well. So the coin-op arcades that you used to see all over the place, they've got all the platforms that those games are built on. So you can run all of those too. So it really is quite a comprehensive package. There is, however, a problem. Because the Pi 5 we're using is quite new, Retropie is still developing the standalone player for this new platform. The developers behind it are volunteering, so they're limited how fast they can update the software, but I would expect a standalone distro to be available sometime in the new year. The current package offered only works with Raspberry Pi 4 and older, so to run 5, we need to install a standard Raspberry Pi operating system and then install Retropie on top of that. So how do we do it? The first thing we need is the imaging software. And all this does is it takes your chosen distro and writes it to an SD card. Now, obviously, you're going to need a card reader on your computer to do this. And if you don't have one, you can find them online for a few pounds. So if you go to this page of Raspberry Pi's website, and here's the download link. So Raspberry Pi Imager, we can download Windows, Mac, or Linux version. You can also do a command line to a Raspberry Pi if you already have one. So let's go ahead and click that. Start the download off. It's only small, and once we've got that, we can just run our install. So once that's downloaded and installed, we can start setting up our SD card, and we have this handy interface here to do it with. So all we do, choose our device, so Pi 5, operating system, so I'm going to go for the official one, but the light version, and got my SD card there, and hit next. And I'm going to put some custom settings, and this is going to help me set up as a Retropie rather than a standard install. So we've set the host name Retropie, username is Pi, password is Raspberry, that's the default password. I'm going to put in my my local Wi-Fi. Then I'm going to go to services. I'm going to enable this. And place I'm going to finish, eject when finished, and I'm going to save that. And I'm going to say yes, I'm going to apply those custom settings, and that starts off writing to the card. And this will take a while, so I'll pause here and come back when it's done. And after a couple of minutes, that's it, write successful. So we can click continue and we can pull the card out. And all we need to do now is plug it into the Pi, plug it into a monitor, and see if it's working. So I've just had to grab an old keyboard from my junk pile to do the login. So the username was Pi and the password Raspberry. Okay, so once we've got our basic OS installed, we need to do a few more steps to get up and running as a games machine. So first thing I'm going to do is sudo apt update, and that's going to update our package manager. Once that's done, we are going to run an upgrade command just to make sure everything is its most recent version. So we'll do that. So once all that's installed, we're going to run this next command, sudo raspi config, and all this is going to do is check our localization options. So click down to there with the arrow keys, and we just want to check our locale is what we expect it to be. So I want this to be English GB, which is already there, so that's fine. And then just configure the time zone as well. So we've got London's already set, so that's fine. So that should be all the configuration steps done. Okay, and because we've changed a load of settings, we're just going to run sudo reboot. So after the reboot, the next thing we're going to do is install bash. So we're going to say sudo apt install git lsb-release. So once we've installed bash, we can use the git clone command to grab the repo that Retropie lives in, and then we can copy this onto the Pi so we can actually install it. Then we're going to cd into the new folder. Then we're going to use this chmod command to make the setup into an executable. This is a lot of stuff. Luckily, this is all in a GitHub repo that I can put a link to, so you'll be able to follow the instructions like that. And then we're going to run the Retropie setup script now that it is executable. And we get to these two screens and we just click OK through both of them. And then once we hit this screen, we just select basic install and yes. This one does take a long time, so go and make a cup of tea and come back. Still going. We're about 3 minutes in now. Okay, so that's finally installed, and that took probably about an hour. So the last step is to go to configuration tools, and we're going to say auto start emulation on boot, and start emulation station at boot. And one more thing, bash welcome tweak and install. And then quick reboot, and we should boot straight to Retropie. Here we go. So now the platform's up and running, we need some games, and this presents us with a problem. Although downloading and using emulators is perfectly legal, most of the games you might want to play are still covered by copyright, which means you can't just go and download them for free. There's a long-standing debate in the emulation community over both the legality and the morality of downloading copyrighted games, particularly when said games are abandonware, that is to say they're no longer available commercially. Now, I'm not going to give out legal advice, but morally speaking, all of us at The Jump are software developers, and we feel strongly that when developers have poured hundreds, maybe thousands of hours into developing a product, even if it was 30 years ago, we should respect that effort and download their products from a legal source and pay for them. In short, we don't do piracy, and neither should you. That being said, there are lots of legitimate options for obtaining games, and there's a pinned post on the Retropie forum with a list of all legal sources of games, so have a read through this for some ideas. Now let's take a look at how to download games and copy them across to the Pi. Now there's a couple of ways to do this. You can either use a USB stick, or my preferred way is to use SSH. So if you remember, during the initial setup I enabled SSH, which allows me to ping games directly to the Pi from my laptop. So let's do a demo. So here is the pinned post of all the games from legitimate sources. which I've had a read through, and I quite like the look of this Atari Lynx collection here. So the Lynx, if you remember, was Atari's handheld console, which came out in the late 80s, shortly after the Game Boy was such a big success. What this is a set of games from a coding contest that was held in 2019 to celebrate the Lynx's 30th birthday. So this is a set of modern games by indie developers on a historic platform. So we follow the link and we get to this page, and there's a download link about halfway down, the full ROM package here. So click that and the download, so there goes the download. So we download is complete. But once it downloads, we can check the file type against the docs to make sure everything's compatible. So we see here that these are all LNX type files. So if we have a look in the docs, we can see, accepted file extensions, LNX, so we're good to go. So once we're happy, we can put all of our games together in a folder and then open up a terminal. And in this terminal, I've already navigated to that folder in my file system. And I'm now going to run the command scp, which is secure copy, ***, which targets all the files in this folder, and then the destination, which is pi at my IP address on the local network, and then home pi Retropie ROMs Atari Lynx, which is its place on the pi. So we put the password in that we set up, and simple as that, they copy across. Okay, so I do have an SSH connection already established, so I'm just going to run sudo reboot just to reboot everything. You need to do that so it can rescan for its games. So that's the project. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I say, drop me a comment and tell me if you want more of this sort of thing, because I've got a ton of ideas for more tech-based content. And if you're interested in code and want to see programming content, drop me a comment and I can do that as well. The next video is going to be another tester, fully code-based this time, but hopefully interesting enough for the casual viewer. Okay, so don't forget to like and subscribe, go and check out the Cyan Gamer, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.